that big yet, so they have to grow a bit more next years, which I think will happen before they are really a big we can call it a domain. In all these domains, we have a total of 160 IT jobs. Currently, every domain has like probably 50 to 20 really strong IT roles in them. And if you would like to know all IT roles in the Netherlands, you can send me an email. I will set my email in the comment section, and I will send you the total picture. But it's pretty overwhelming to show it at the moment and go through every specific job. So there are actually 4 categories of jobs. So you have entry-level jobs who have 0 to 1 year experience. And you have starting jobs who have a half year to 2 years of experience. Also mid-level jobs, and those have 2 to 6 years of experience, and jobs with longer experience than that. So that's mostly 5 to 10 years. And it depends per domain how many years of experience you have. You can also switch domains if you, for example, have a lot of knowledge in data and data intelligence, but there's a position opening up in information security through reskilling or some information security courses. You can also always switch to a next level job or in another field. So it's very diverse. Every domain hangs together on the other domain and is very used by the other domain. So if one domain grows, it will also mean that other domains will grow with that domain. These domains are going to be applicable across all sectors. So first, it started with you have the total IT companies, websites or retailers like Zalando or other applications, social media. But now you will see that it will be more and more implemented in other companies and sectors as well. So in the end, it will be every sector will implement IT domains in their field: retail, shipping, export, transport, payments, healthcare, mobilization, cars, but also sustainability with microgridding or in sports with data analytics. And you will see that grow more and more into every field or sector. So there also have the COVID push. So COVID has pushed IT 5 years in the future, some people say, in terms of growing and being more implemented in companies. So you have, this is from McKinsey, the total change of employment is totally more focused on healthcare, STEM professionals, health professionals, managers, but also you will see that a lot of jobs from the old economy, like office support or other services, more service-like companies, bars, etc., are becoming less and less big through COVID. But it also means that every sector is innovating itself to a post-COVID world. And that will mean a lot of more digitalization than there is right now. It also has shown us that we have problems in our supply chain. So there are a lot of things to learn and grow in the supply chain with data analytics and a more short supply chain. So the supply chain won't be disrupted anymore, just like it has been through COVID. Also, the work from home is there to stay. So a lot of companies are implementing a 3-day work week with a 5-day work week, of course, but 3 days at home, over 3 days at work and 2 days at home, where you can book your meetings or your workplace at the company. This also has given every company the insight that working abroad is possible. So a lot of IT jobs that are currently where you currently need to go to an office or work from a certain location, the COVID push made it possible that companies now see that you can work from abroad. So if you live in, for instance, Germany, you are able to work for in an IT-related job in France or in the Netherlands or in America. Those possibilities are becoming more and more apparent. Also, the old economy sectors are also pushed into digitization. As I said before, retail shops who have all been closed, and everything that was physical uses some kind of digital new structure to be able to stand in this new era of digitalization. Also, data-driven decision-making through the use of the cloud. So data-driven decision-making has been a factor of IT for a long time, but it will be, companies start to implement it more and more in their day-to-day work and their day-to-day choices they make. And those data has to be stored in the cloud because otherwise it wouldn't be that efficient.
Max, thank you so far, and also thank you for making it very timely and topical with what, of course, a worldwide phenomenon has meant for this field too. I would like to just bring in a question from the audience. From Maarten. So first of all, he gives a thanks for the talk, valuable information. I agree. So regarding the skills that you showed on your slide, a couple slides back, like Microsoft, Azure, etc., what do you think is the best choice if you want to grow in tech? Is it to focus on becoming an expert in one of those skills, or would it be better to kind of be all round and be able to use a little bit of everything?
So thank you for the question, Laura, and thank you for the question, Maarten. I think it's very useful to become a bit of skilled in a bit of everything. So I think another speaker will be talking about the T-shaped profile, and that's something that we'll see a lot in IT jobs. So you can specify in the field you're interested in, but it's also become more and more important to know a bit of other fields because your decisions also have to be based on those other fields, and also are intertwined with other fields, especially in IT, where every domain is so intertwined with what the other domain is doing or what the core use of the other domain is. So I hope that will answer your question, but a bit of both. So specify in where you're good in and what you like, but also be able to know something about every domain or about all things that you are interested in. So thank you for the question.
Thanks, Max. I think we're off to the trends and roles.
Yes, so we're going further with trends and roles. So we now know that the perspectives are very good and the possibilities are beyond knowing. So this is currently in the Netherlands. These are the open applications for jobs in the Netherlands. So as you can see, the old and very established domains have a lot of current open applications, and they are growing steadily. Let me give for starters, all domains are growing, but there are specific domains that are growing more exponentially than other domains. So these are the very except then growth hacking and digital marketing, which is growing also very big. But these are the standard domains like software development, tech support, and network technology, who are growing steadily. So you can see software development still has the largest amount of applications at the moment in the Netherlands. But there are also are growing application or domains where applications are growing more big, like CRM deployment. So you will start to notice that a lot of Salesforce administrator roles or Salesforce implementer, Salesforce architect, all those roles are growing bigger and bigger every month, to say, because companies like Salesforce are pushing their product even more to like the middle and smaller businesses, as I said. So that will just implicates that there are more IT jobs in that space. IT strategy and management doesn't grow that big because it's already very filled and very there are a lot of people with enough experience to be filling those positions. So here you see the three most growing IT domains in the Netherlands. So we have data storage and data intelligence, information security, and DevOps and cloud technology. And those domains are growing really big every month. As you can see by the applications, there are an active 1,800, 1,100, and 1,400 applications per domain. And those are growing, but that means that those are active open applications. Yeah, that gives you an insight in how big the industry is becoming and how more they are growing. So we have a lot of technology trends, and I summed some up right here. So what you will see in the coming future is that these trends are, or these technologies and trends are becoming more apparent over time. So a lot of companies will implement those technologies and trends even more and more and more, as in artificial intelligence and machine learning. With that, deep learning is a very big technology that is growing and being more implemented by at the start large companies, but furthermore the smaller companies as well. Cybersecurity is becoming more important, especially with every hack that is happening. For instance, in the Netherlands, a lot of companies or a lot of government agencies are being hacked, and that gives those agencies a bad name. But also companies that are being hacked and need to pay large amounts of ransom fees. And yeah, that's something that you would want to be happening less in the future. Also the Internet of Things, which is maybe not that very noble of, but will become more and more in the future. In the end, every thing that you will have in your house, from your fridge to maybe even your table, will have a chip in it and will communicate with each other in some way. And with that comes also edge computing. So that means that the fridge or the table needs to use that data on the spot and not go to a large server. Also clouds, robotics, blockchain, 5G, and quantum computing. Those are also big trends in the IT sector at the moment. So then I have a question for the audience. Do you have any other trends that you think that are being used or are important in the future? If you would let me know in the chat box, I'll be interested to hear those things.
One trend that's mentioned is sustainability, also ethics in tech, virtual reality, augmented reality. Yeah, those are exactly also trends that are apparent. Learning management, course design, analytics translator. And especially, that's a good one, Juliana, ethics. That's becoming more and more important, because with all these new trends and technologies, things like how do we use those data? How do we not use it in the wrong way? And what is very important in those kinds of decisions that you make as a company. So ethics is also a big one. Sustainability as well. Sustainable computing, lower the level of energy consumption of digital services. Yeah, that's also a good one. Brain-machine interfaces, Neuralink. Yeah, that will be a very interesting one as well. So as you see, there are a lot more trends and newer technologies that will stand up every year and will become more apparent in the IT space. So these trends that I'm now talking about, those are not all trends, and you will probably have a lot of trends that I won't talk about, but are there. So yeah, here I come back to the CRM landscape.
So these companies, every company has to be used by a person, or every application these companies make have to be used by persons. And you see a lot of tech jobs growing in those spaces to specifically use a product or service from these kind of companies. It's not that if you just know how to code with Python or whatever, that you can use these products and work for a company to implement those products in a good way. So it's important to do that in a good manner. So you have a lot of companies, SaaS companies, who are growing their courses and growing everything that you can learn in those companies. Also, 5G will be make everything more interconnected and faster, of course, which will be the ground base of future innovation in IT and tech. So maybe because of slow 4G speed where we're used to now, it will make 5G will make it more and more used to come up with new products and new services for people. So also, autonomous artificial intelligence and the clouds is very growing in the Netherlands at the moment. So you will see more and more products implementing these technologies in their use, and companies also are more and more motivated to use these technologies because they're starting to see the upsides of these technologies. Also, blockchain will change some parts of our way of working, because it gives a safe way to make sure that something has happened. So voting, also payments, but also lending, and in the financial sector, it will disrupt a lot of current companies, but also law enforcement, and now you start to see these online music services, Spotify or YouTube, being disrupted by blockchain-oriented applications and companies who want to do it on a more safer and more secure way. So here I have some very emerging roles. So on the left we have developing roles, and on the right engineering roles, as you can see, and especially data scientists, cybersecurity specialists are very rapidly growing. At least the applications are, but also the fields and the use of those roles are growing rapidly. So you will also see newer roles like blockchain developer, who aren't that big, but who are people are growing and are also being positioned in certain companies who are implementing the blockchain. Also the engineering side, so you will see a lot of more Internet of Things engineers, cloud engineers, robotics engineers, but also data engineers, and also network architects, who are more and more needed for the more we grow into this tech and IT world. So every new technology will need to use a network architect to build the architecture of the company's network, or other certain things in the network of the company. So these are the current emerging roles in tech, but you also have support roles like administrator jobs, as I talked about in CRM, but also in other domains in IT, and IT supports internally in companies, and also for clients or customers of the company, because all these new services are being used by faster amounts of customers, and these all need to be helped. Also, automation will do a lot of this work, but those automations have to be hosted or managed by IT developers, or by other people who are in this space and work on those certain roles. So those were the emerging roles, and that was my presentation and talk about emerging roles and trends. I don't know if there are any questions at the moment.
Thank you so much, Max. And definitely there are some questions actually that have come in from the audience. So let me first start with those. There's questions around reskilling, both reskilling into tech, but also reskilling in tech itself. So from one tech role maybe to another. So I'll start off with the first, which is, I'll combine two questions here, but for people who are rescaling into tech, a lot of the job postings have a requirement to have maybe a bachelor or a master's in computer science, plus experience in the field as well. So how can you get into a tech position if you don't have the formal university degree? Or how do you get into the tech position if you have a degree in another field or not the experience yet?
Yeah, thank you for the question. A good question, because a lot of people who want to reskill into IT are, yeah, come up to this wall of companies asking for a bachelor's or a master's degree. And there are a couple of ways around this. So to be honest, some IT jobs, just do require a university degree or higher education. But there's also a lot of possibilities in a work experience. So if you have a lot of work experience in a certain field and you upskill yourself with certain certifications or online courses, it will be possible to apply. A lot of companies have these standardized questions for a bachelor's or a master's degree, but sometimes it's also possible to just applicate with certain amounts of experience and skill sets that you can show that you have, and also through certifications or online courses that you did. So there probably it will say that you need a bachelor's or a master's, but some companies also would take into account people with enough work experience or enough knowledge about certain fields. So about reskilling from a certain IT domain or another field, it's really about the skills that you have in the field that you want to go into, because a lot of things that you already have learned. So, for example, if you're an economics major and you want to go into a certain IT field, it's very useful to, or the knowledge you already have is very useful for maybe very useful for the job you will be applying for. So through certifications and upskilling on certain hard skills that you need for the job, like coding or like cloud computing or information security, you are able to make a T-shape of yourself and upskill yourself to that job.
Yeah, I think definitely, of course, as you showed, this, for example, through blockchain, it's in every field really. So you can also use those new technical skills towards a role that is already in the domain you may have worked on. Is it healthcare or economics, commerce, whatever it was. And as you said earlier, I think in any team there is at least one self-made developer. So there are many success stories out there of people who have not necessarily studied computer science traditionally, but have later maybe studied it or later gotten the experience and are more so self-taught, so to say. So maybe also look into those experiences and contact such people for some advice. Another question was about reskilling within tech. So this question is coming from Hande. She is actually working as a software developer and a team lead for 15 years. So she has a lot of experience, but more recently she has expanded her skill set with a master's in big data and business analytics. So she wants to change her career path from software developer to a data engineer path. But she is both junior and senior. So do you have any advice for those people who are a bit further in their career, but are maybe more junior in the role that they're now applying to?
Yeah, good question as well, Hande. Thank you. That's a possibility, or that's a thing that's very useful or very usual in the tech space, that people are reskilling to a certain area or field. And there are some smaller companies where you can maybe have a larger position or have a senior position because the implications of the position are a bit smaller. So that's a possibility to look for. And there you can work on your experience as a senior position in the company. And with that experience, you can probably apply to larger companies. With a 10 to larger companies, it's probably it is possible to start as a junior, but to go to a senior role very quick. If you, after 6 months, shown very competent in certain ways or at certain points of your work, you can show the upper management or that you are able to go to that senior role. So both maybe joining a smaller company if you want to instantly start as a senior on a certain field, and with experience you can go to bigger companies. But also with bigger companies you probably should have to start at a junior position because you're just starting to get experience in that field, and then grow your skill set more and more so you can go to a senior role.
Thanks, Max. I think very helpful advice. Next is a question from Andre, who says it's relatively easy to show yourself once you are invited for a technical interview, because there, of course, you can directly showcase your skills. But it's all about actually landing the interview, right? So having a decent portfolio and an engineering degree is often not enough to necessarily pass the CV screening. So is there a recommendation to pass the CV screening so you can make sure you get that interview?
Yeah, good question as well. Thank you, Andre. It's very important, as you said, to have a good portfolio. If you are able to come through a lot of CV screenings, make your CV stand out of the others. So maybe start with a portfolio, or start with the certain skill sets that you have yourself. Be creative, because a lot of CVs probably look the same. Make a T-shape of yourself about your skill set, and try to encourage the employer to let you go to the interview. I understand that it maybe sometimes is hard if you get passed on a lot of times, but just try to innovate, try new ways of showing the employer how you are skilled enough for the interview. And when you're actually invited, you can, of course, show all your skills. But I think being innovative in showing what you can do. So maybe start with a portfolio, or maybe if the job application is for engineering a certain type of product, maybe, it probably is a lot of work, but make a small prototype of it to be to stand out of the rest.
Great. I hope that was helpful, Andre. Do give it a try, and let's hear back from you how it went. A question coming in from Alexander. How about transitioning into product management roles if you have an MBA, for example, and several years of experience, but maybe little product experience?
Yeah, thank you, Alexander. That's a very good question, because it is, to be honest, not that easy to start or go into these into the new role. What probably is very useful is having experience in certain kind of product management, or product developing role, just as the same as the other question I answered. Start off in a junior position where you can show off your skill set and your capabilities in developing a project or a small product, and also that will probably show your employer your capabilities in managing a product or a certain type of service a company gives. I think it's also very important to have certain skills in or know-how of IT and the product you are working on. For example, I study in MBA, and I'm also doing a computer science course now, because I want to work in a startup environment, or at a new app startup company. besides my current work. But I just study for these new or for the field related skills to be able to show, okay, I am an MBA major, but I also have computer science skills in the example of an application or something in that field. And in product management, it's probably more like engineering or product design courses that you can also follow online.
Thank you, and thanks everyone for all your questions. Definitely keep them coming. Just a quick reminder, if you've joined us a bit later, if you have a question directly for the speaker, please put them in the Q&A on Zoom. So rather than using the chat, if it's directly for the speaker, please use the Q&A. A few more questions for you, Max. I think one thing that I'm curious about, you are coming from the business development world, right? And now you've really built all this expertise in tech and know about all the different roles. So what has surprised you most, or what have you found most interesting that you've learned along the way about tech?
Well, first of all, I always thought that IT wasn't that interesting when I was younger. And when I first started working as developing the products of TechGrounds and TechKeyboarder, I was very surprised by the gap that there is in the workforce and the overallocation of skills in economics or in other fields. And that shocked me really. That made me even more motivated to start working in tech and IT and totally switch my view. What also was very interesting is that all these tech domains are very intertwined in what they do. So a data center is providing cloud, but so a data analyst cannot do his work very good if the cloud isn't working. And besides that, the information security has to be good. Like every domain we've talked about stands on one another, and if one domain falls away or isn't that efficient or good, the other domains are affected. And also if one domain grows very big or has new innovations, the other domains will grow with it in some certain sense. So it's like a very big, also cloud or blob, of however you want to call it, that's just growing and growing exponentially over the past years and will grow more exponentially in the future.
And if you personally were to move into a tech role tomorrow, is there a specific domain that really interests you?
Good question. I think a lot of domains like SaaS companies are already very big and are already very made up and exist certain sectors. So I would probably be interested in new sectors like sustainability and combining sustainability with the Internet of Things or combining certain domains to make up a new domain. Besides that, I'm very interested in blockchain. That will shape the next 10 years in such an unfathomable way that not only finance but a lot of other sectors are going to be affected by it.
Thanks. So a question from Martina in the audience. I think we've already touched on this a little bit about reskilling, etc. She has studied public administration herself and wants to change her job, but doesn't yet know what field she should choose. Currently, she's working on programming. When you are applying and reskilling to tech and you're applying for jobs, what role do maybe some personal projects have in your job application or events that you have joined? Are these things you can include? Are these things encouraged?
I think everything you do that may be applicable in the work you will be doing, like public administration, probably a lot of public relations. So a certain public relation oriented role is very applicable in your situation. And also I think it's very important to learn and do things that you are internally motivated about, because that is the great motivator for being the real specialist in that kind of field. So if you're now doing programming and you want to do another domain where you're very interested in, be sure to follow that domain, because you will become better and are more skilled in that domain than if you aren't that motivated. So be very motivated, and also apply the things that you already learned into your current skill set, because IT is becoming so more implemented in our lives that everything will be affected, and all other fields of study like healthcare as well. If you have a medicine degree and you want to work at companies with who are digitizing healthcare, that's very useful. I think for some healthcare companies, that's also, you have to need a medicine degree, but not all IT jobs. But it's very useful in new domains that are standing out.
Thank you so much, Max. I think we're coming to the end of your time, but thank you very much also for answering so many questions from the audience. I'm sure it was greatly appreciated. And also asking some questions to the audience yourself during your presentation. I think that was very fun as well. So thank you. Feel free to stick around, of course, if you'd like. We'll be moving on with our second speaker of today, which is Terry Nick Bearsmash. So welcome, Terry. Again, for the audience, if you do have direct questions to the speaker, please use the Q&A, and I will refer some of these questions to the speaker. Now, our second speaker, Terry Nick, is a data scientist. So we're moving a little bit of topics at ASR, and he will be talking more about starting your career in tech. A lot of you have had questions about that, so I'm sure you're dying for his insights. So thank you, Terry. Welcome, and take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Lara. It's very nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me for this summit to talk you a little bit of how to start your career in tech. My name is Terry Nick. I live in Utrecht. It's a city in the center of the Netherlands. Quite beautiful city. I'm 20 years old, and I graduated 3 years ago for the Masters Artificial Intelligence here at the University of Utrecht. And my search for my first job was a beautiful search. It was a beautiful journey, because I figured out that if you focus mainly on two things, the search for your first job or for any job is pretty nice to do, and it's also a moment to reflect on yourself and to take your time to what is really your desire or your urge to do in your tech. I'm working at ASR. ASR is a large insurance company here in the Netherlands. It's around 4,000 employees. We sell all different kinds of insurance products: non-life insurance, health insurance, life insurance, and of course, as an insurance company, we have a lot of data to work with. So for me as a data scientist, it's a beautiful place to make our algorithms, to prepare our data. But yeah, how did I came up to work at ASR? And the topic of my talk is starting a career in tech. Let's focus on the first point. That's starting. Starting is always uncomfortable for we as humans to start with something. It's challenging. We're a bit afraid of, are we capable of doing the things we did? And 3 years ago, I was at the point after graduation, and I was in my search for my first job, and I had this same feeling of, okay, I've just graduated. What will I going to be as a professional? And then I found these 3 jogging balls in my room. And these 3 jogging balls remind me of when I was 15 years old. I found these 3 jogging balls at my parents' home. I was then living there, and I asked my dad if he could teach me how to juggle. He told me there's only one way you can learn how to juggle, and that's just learning by doing. So he showed me the first principles, and after a while, I just became juggling. And first, it's easy. You know the basics, and after a while, you can apply some small tricks, and of course, they drop. It's part of the learning. And now people say to me, if they found here in my home and they found my juggling balls, they say, "Oh, I can't juggle." Now, of course, maybe you can juggle, but definitely you can learn how to juggle. And that brings me to the first piece of advice I want to give you, and that's really the starting point to choosing a career in tech is the core question: what do you want to learn? I asked this question myself. So you can maybe in the chat, if you think about this question, what would you like to learn? Just the first thoughts. Can you maybe share in the chat what your answers will be? What would you like to learn? Is it a programming language? Is it some type of algorithm? Is it more of a system you would like to learn from? And it's a difficult question, sure, but you can learn so many things as a human being. But the first question, what would you like to learn? Not in terms, I want to work at that company, I want to work in that industry, but what would you like to learn?
Not sure.
Data science?
Okay, I see you also have an eye on the chat.
Yeah.
People analytics, data science.
How to make meaningful deductions from data, a beautiful answer. Yeah, okay, cool. And that's a really good starting question. And how to start a career? It's a general question to approach how to start something, how to start a career. But more on the tech part specifically, you can learn so many specific things in the world of tech. If these three balls, if this is Python, this is Java, and this is R, there are so many more languages you can choose, you can learn from. So on the one hand, it's a huge store of things you can learn, and it's a bit of the paradox of choice, you know, how more choices there are, the more difficult it is to pick something. But still, it's a very important question. What would you like to learn? And for me, when I was 26 years old, back then, the most important thing I would like to learn is just how is data science applied in business? I know data science from the university, from academia, but how is data science applied in the industry, in the world of business? Still a fairly general question I was curious to. And there are a lot of companies working with data, so that question do not directly point you to some company you will go to. So I came up with a second question after the question, what would you like to learn? The second question I answered myself is, what is for you an appropriate learning environment? And which kind of environment are you good in learning? So what are the conditions, the context, the culture for you in which you are a good learner? So that could be maybe a bit of a very business end result driven company, or maybe a small startup, or a public organization. So also answering the second questions for yourself. What is an appropriate learning environment? And besides, what would you like to learn? What is an environment in which you will flourish in terms of learning? And at ASR, the typical point about ASR as an insurance company is that it isn't that extremely business and result driven. It's a very human company. It's very informal, pretty flat for a big company. The hierarchy is quite minimal, and that's something that suits me as a person, to work in a company where people are listening to each other regardless of your position, regardless of your age. So the flat characteristics of ASR is very useful for me as a person to thrive and to learn. Yeah, so that's also very important. And one thing I came up to in my beginning stages when I entered ASR, so I was in an environment where I could learn, and I would learn to apply data science in business. And I discovered quite soon that because you're a techie in a company where also there are quite different roles, the people quite soon see you as an expert, and they trust you. And that was for me personal a real eye-opener. I thought maybe the first 2 years I have to prove myself that I'm an expert, because you are a techie, you have such an important role in a company. From the first moment you enter the company, you are actually taken seriously. And it's also an attitude you have to keep for yourself, that you are taken seriously by your thoughts and by your knowledge. Although you're just starting, even if you're a beginner, you still have a lot to talk about, and have a lot of expertise. Although your experience is maybe quite small compared to the others, you have so much value to add. So that was also a really key point in my career when I started at ASR. And that question, what would you like to learn? It's relevant in the start, but it's a very relevant self-reflection question I ask myself each half year. So after 2 years as working as a data scientist at ASR, I once again ask myself that question: what would I like to learn right now? And I figured out that other than my teammates really are more the specialists, data scientists. They're really good at, one is very good at the text mining, another one is really dedicated into building pipelines in Python. And for myself, I figured out that I am more the business side of a data scientist. So I changed more from the data scientist towards an analytics translator. And as an analytics translator, you are filling the gap between tech and business, because tech is nothing without business. So if you are doing a data science project in a business setting, you always have to work with non-tech people and people that are domain knowledgeers or domain expertise in different kind of insurance companies, in my sense. And for me as an analytics translator, I'm more of the bridge between tech, between data science and the business. So I discovered that by asking myself the question, what would I like to learn? So that question remains relevant also during your career. Yeah. Oh yeah, and another important point about the question, how to start a career in tech, related to what is a good learning environment for you, is with what kind of people are you, would you like to cooperate? What kind of personalities are those people? Yeah, maybe you can relate from your studies on college or on university. Of course, you have cooperated with people, and you know what kind of people are suitable for you to work with, to, as a team, gain success. And if you apply for a job, most of the time you do not speak to your direct colleagues. Most of the time it's a recruiter and a manager, and somewhere else in the process of applying for a job. You maybe will speak to 1 or 2 teammates if you're lucky. But another piece of advice I want to give you is to ask to meet your possible future teammates, and just to have a chat with them for 1 hour. I did that at ASR, and it was so useful to see and to meet these people, which I knew I had to work with every day on a daily basis, and really they would really be my most close colleagues. You can ask that for yourself, and so don't hesitate to ask for a meetup with your future possible future colleagues. Because also in the world of tech, of course, if you're looking for a job and if you're curious what you want to do, know for yourself that, of course, the company is interested who are you as a person, but you can also have your conditions on who are you as a company and as an employer. But you can also be critical the other way around. It's very important to have that mutual interest in each other, and to be very curious, who are you as a company, and what are you willing to serve me as an employee? It's very important. What else? Yeah, and the last thing I want to give you the piece of advice. When I was in my search for a job, I was so eager to find the most perfect job in the beginning, with the idea if I apply for a job, that will be it for the rest of my life. And of course, that is nonsense, because I realized if you are applying for a job and if you're starting your career in tech, you're just entering a point. Your career is or just a collection of points. So I'm now here at ASR, but I know that I can choose in any direction for a possible new job. So whatever you're going to choose, take it seriously, enjoy the process, choose for yourself what would you like to learn, and what is a suitable learning environment for you. And also realize that you are just entering a point, a dot. You can switch always afterwards. That's it. That's my piece of advice for you. We'd love to hear your questions or your response. I can now just answer them. We have plenty of time left, I see.
Plenty of time. Well, depends how many questions there are, Terry. So there are some questions indeed. I think, thank you. You've been talking a lot about learning environments. So there are definitely some questions that are about learning, and also some comments about what people have been learning, self-learning as well. Martina sharing that she started learning Python by herself, and that was her first programming language. But I want to bring a question from Sakshi, who is talking about bringing in some of your previous learning or previous experience when you're moving into a new field. So by profession, he is an engineer, but has worked in marketing for a travel company, as that was his interest. Now he wants to work as a data scientist with a focus on machine learning, Python, and will be doing a master's in the fall. But how can he use past experience, so past learning that he's done in marketing towards data science roles? How can he make his profile stronger with the learning he's already done?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think the first thing that comes up to my mind is if you already have experience in business world, in the most general sense of the word, it's already very useful to bring that business knowledge into the field of data science, because doing data science with your experience with business is so powerful, because doing data science without any feeling of business, it's challenging. So your experience with business is, I think, already a unique selling point to enter the world of data science.
Thank you. And you were talking about surrounding yourself with the right people, right? To learn from, meeting maybe future teammates before you necessarily join a company. I think quite a lot of companies and startups especially have had this new practice of office days or like role plays at the office, actually to do so, to make sure you also want to work in that environment. But I was curious, what are some, of course, the learning and your development, it is a personal responsibility first and foremost, but do you think it's also a responsibility of a company you join, let's say of your employer? And what are some good practices you may have seen from organizations in terms of employee learning?
Do you mean in the application process specifically?
I think rather when someone has joined a company, do you think a company has a responsibility to stimulate your learning, and what are maybe some approaches to that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, at ASR, learning is a very central topic in the HR policy. So rather than when I talk with my manager to have an evaluation talk, to look back at the past few months, there's also always a central question: what have you learned, and what would you like? What are your learning goals for the next months? So I'm not only judged by my end results, but I'm also we are looking at my learning curve, at the technical parts, at the technical skills, but also at soft skills and the way I present myself, my behavior. So paying attention with your manager towards your learning ability and your learning curve on different domains is at ASR a central topic of these kind of conversations. Yeah.
Great. So let's dive a little bit more into also your expertise in data science in that field. Paulo is sharing that to be a data scientist, do you think realistically learning a method is more important than learning a specific language? It seems that recruiting is more focused on some specific softwares than methodologies that one can deploy with different softwares. So do you think it's more important to learn methods or to learn a specific language?
I think both can work, actually. I know indeed, I agree with that. Recruiters are very pointed towards that you are capable in programming in a certain language. But I think if you're really good at methods, it can also be useful to be part of a data science team. Of course, you have different roles in the data science team, so that's also part of your learning environment. What is your role in that specific team? And if you are the expert at the methods part, and somebody else can turn it into Python language, Python code, for instance, you still are a very valuable player in your team. So it depends on the context. I think both are very suitable and useful. Yeah.
And speaking about teams, Carolina is asking, how large is the data science team at ASR?
Yeah, we're a team of 10 persons, 10 people. Me as a data scientist, 2 other data scientists, and 3 cloud engineers or data engineers. And then, of course, a product owner and a Scrum Master, because we work with the Agile framework. And we're the central team at ASR. And so around different departments at ASR, you also have different data science teams. But the team I'm working in consists of 10 people. Yeah. And also regarding the Agile way of working, which is very common in software development and data science projects. The beauty about the Agile way of working is that in its core, it has the urge to learn in a fast rate. So also the nature of developing algorithms and developing software has the movement of learning in itself already because of the framework. So that's very, yeah, that's lucky if you are doing tech work.
Thank you, Terry, Nick, and we've come to the end of your session already, so that went by very quickly. Thank you for sharing your story and your 3 juggling balls as you're starting your career in tech. Feel free to stick around, of course, maybe see some more questions or comments on the chat and Q&A. We'll be moving on to our 3rd speaker, and also I do want to mention that we have a full program, of course, today and tomorrow, where we will go into depth on some of the issues that have been brought up already, such as product management, such as building your T-shaped profile. So make sure to check out the program and tune in for those sessions if that piqued your interest. Now it's time to welcome Renee Malone from Utility, and we're now going to talk a little bit more about the recruitment side. So a lot of you have already been asking questions about recruitment, and Renee is the person as a recruitment specialist to tell us more about what to expect from the application process and how you can take control over your recruitment process. So Renee, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us. If you could please open your camera and then the floor is yours.
Hi, Laura. I can't open my my camera because you stopped the video, so perhaps you could start it again. There we go. Fantastic. Hi, thanks all. First of all, thank you, Laura. Thank you for introducing me. I'll give you a brief introduction of myself, and then I would launch into a short presentation that I've made. Indeed, my name is Renee. I am a recruitment specialist. I have been in recruitment for the last 10 years. I've experienced both on the agency side and on the corporate side. And then for the last, well, nearly a year, I've been with Itility. Itility focuses on bringing innovative tech solutions from a consultancy perspective to large international enterprises and more mid-sized companies. We work on cloud solutions and data solutions as this particular specialty. This has led me to hire and interview a lot of data professionals over the last year. And but with my general experience, I would love to give you some tips on how to control your own interview process, because what I gathered indeed from the last session is that a lot of you experience recruiters to be quite pointed towards technical skills and almost sometimes feels like a little to-do list. And you tick some boxes, but you have your own input, and it's really a two-way street. And I want to show you how to use that. So I'd like to share my screen. So I'll start with my PowerPoint. Okay, there we go. So how do you indeed take care to take control of your recruitment process? So I think it is important to understand that any vacancy is in essence a business problem. No company opens a vacancy out of the goodness of their heart just because they enjoy recruiting, even though me as a recruiter, I would love to do that. But either the company is smart and foresees a need in the future, or they have someone, an urgent need. That can be someone who left. It can be a new technology that they don't master yet. That can be a project that is tacked on and they need extra help. So a hire is always a solution to that problem. This means that you as the candidate are either the solution, you are not the solution, or you are actually more than the solution. So you bring more than what they ask for. It is important to you, but also to the company, to accurately find out whether you are the solution to their business problem. Now, let's start at the basis. So what you really need to know. The recruitment process, there's actually two forms of it. There's a more traditional form and a digital form. I'll explain later where those differences come from. But in the traditional form, you are actively looking for a new job. You find the vacancy, you've done your research, you apply, potentially you've written a lovely cover letter explaining why this particular vacancy attracts you. You have added your resume, and then the recruiter reviews it and reaches out to you if they too see a fit. That is the official start of the selection process, which usually is composed of multiple stages. There's an offer, and you are hired. This is, of course, the best case scenario. There's always the possibility that there's no fit and that you get to know that during the process, but let's just always stick to the best case outcome. In the digital version, the company releases a vacancy, you see it, you apply for it, or a recruiter actively contacts you for it, the selection process starts, and you start to do your research. Then you get the offer, and then you get to hire. So it is a very small difference, but it is a significant difference. And the main difference is that you are in the digital version more of a consumer than the person who applies. And this I like to call the one-click digital transition, digital economy. If you're hungry, well, you click on Deliveroo or Uber and you have a full meal in front of your doorstep. 20 minutes to an hour later, you want to go somewhere? Well, there's Go Scooters, or you can order an Uber. You're in need of some retail therapy, no need to leave your house. You can just click on Zalando or any other shop. Do you need a job or want a job? There's LinkedIn offering you all these options. And then there's even more like recurring subscriptions that make it super easy. So all of these have in common that it's one easy click and it's done. You fill out a form. There's minimal information that you need to pass on. There's minimal thinking actually going on, apart from what is it I want right now. So it's very instantaneous. This means that it's very easy. It's very quick, can be quite casual. There's lots of choice. And the outcome is overall rather positive, discovering new restaurants, new places to go, making it extra easy for you as a candidate or as a person. But they're not always positive. So what recruiters have experienced is that candidates are often less prepared because, you know, clicking on that ad can be a spur of the moment thing, can be very spontaneous. It just looks good, or you happen to have a really bad day in your current role, or you're really, you know, you're just getting started on the market and you don't really know. So you just click on everything. And this means that hiring structures can be overwhelmed. The problem is that bad hiring decisions can be made. I know I see in the slide that I said bad hiring decisions made, but it can be made. And this is generally the case. It's always a two-way street. A really good recruiter can filter out the people that are not an optimal match or do not have the right motivation. But I feel the candidate also can take control of the process to make sure that they are not hired in a role that is unsuitable for them in the long term. I'll go back one. The result is actually, what is a bad hiring decision? It often means that people leave their jobs relatively quickly. So what the recruitment industry has noticed is that there is an actual uptick in people leaving within either the first 4 months or the first year. It depends a little bit on your local economy. In the Netherlands, year contracts are very prevalent. So you can see a trend where people after 1 year decide not to renew their contract or don't have their contracts renewed. This is pre-COVID corona crisis, of course. This changes things a lot, so I'm not taking that into account. But before that, the trend was that people were not extending their contracts. And that is usually due to lack of fit. People do not live up to expectations, or also equally bad, the job does not live up to the expectations of the new employee. So how can you take charge of your own recruitment process? So what I believe is that no matter how wonderful it is that there's spontaneous clicking on job ads that look great or look like a great fit, or conversations that happen with recruiters that reach out to you, please keep doing that, because you never know what gem you're going to stumble on, or what career opportunity you're going to get. It is important to really know what your values are. Who are you? What matters to you? And you can only do that by really a little bit of introspection and really taking the time to do that. It may sound a little, I don't know, airy-fairy, but I still think that it is important to take time to do that. Because once you know yourself, you can ask the right questions. Also, even if you've already clicked, but before you are contacted, or the moment you get contacted by a recruiter, please do yourself the favor to research the company, not just the vacancy. So don't just read the vacancy, but really research the company. There is Glassdoor, there's a website, there's LinkedIn, there's promotional information being put out, videos, articles, and your network, of course, people who already work there, people who've worked there, or people who might have heard of it. So I think it is important that you do that research no matter where you are, not later on, but actually quite early on. And the last thing that I would say is write down what you need to know before making a decision. So what are non-negotiables for you? I think it's very important that you figure this out in advance, because then you don't forget to ask for them. And eventually it will help you make better decisions. Companies do the same. I mean, I, as a recruiter, one of the first things I ask a hiring manager is, okay, in your very long list of requirements, what is the top 3? What is truly non-negotiable and what are nice to haves? So that's very important. So then during the interview, it is quite important that you are clear on your expectations. You have something to bring to the table, and you should let people know this. What is important to you, and if it's not important to them, that's actually okay. It's just important to know that you are then not a match. And if it is completely aligned, that is fantastic. So you also want to get clarity on the company's expectations. So what are the goals for the department? What are the goals for this particular role within the department? What are KPIs or other metrics? What's the definition of success? So obviously companies have missions and vision statements. Review those, and also review how the department contributes to reaching those missions and visions. How does the role contribute to realizing the vision of the broader company? And how does that translate to KPIs and other metrics? Be clear on your strengths. I think you can expect the general question, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And you can give answers. And it's important that companies know what you're good at. What can they use your knowledge for? Who should they couple you with when you in areas that you're not as strong at? I think it is, everybody has weaknesses, but as long as you know what they are and how you can, let's say, utilize your strengths to compensate for the things you're not as good at, then you can easily get the team to a higher level. To give you a clear example, I love thinking long term. I love having a North Star to work towards, and I always have plenty of ideas. Now, I love to start things, and sometimes I get a little bit bogged down in the practicalities of day-to-day operations, and execution then starts to lag behind. But paired up with someone who has excellent project management skills, and together we actually realize more than perhaps what is initially expected of us. So together we are the perfect pair. And during the interviews as well, make sure that you ask frequent follow-up questions. I have noticed that a lot of people, a lot of candidates leave their questions to the end, which is fine. Personally, I have a preference for questions throughout the interview, because then you hear something in the interviewer's story or the way the interviewer asks questions that triggers a question of your own. And then if you ask that question, it really becomes a two-way street. It really becomes a conversation where you're talking as equals. If you do prefer to ask questions towards the end, or if your interviewer has made very clear that questions should wait until the end, write them down. Write down what you really want and say, oh, by the way, we were talking about data mesh. Can you tell me if you've already actively used that in a project? Or, well, can you tell me a little bit more about your project management methodologies? What is the standards that you're using? Do we need certification, or can I get certified if I'm not? So those are very valid questions to ask. and ask them and write them down. And I think they're actually probably more insightful than questions you have pre-prepared. This doesn't go against, by the way, saying what I said earlier, that there are minimum need to knows. So these two are combined. There's minimum things you need to know to make your decision about the company and whether the role truly is for you. But then also make sure that you ask questions about things said in the interview, ask for clarification, ask for things that are not clear. If people say, well, here we work really hard, it's always a good thing to check, well, what do you mean? What does hard work mean for you or your company? Is it long hours, or is it working with perhaps the US, which means that you need to make calls in the evening rather than just between 9 o'clock and 5 o'clock on a regular work day? So then you get a lot more insights. I see your question. How do we know the team environment for which we're getting hired? Sometimes it may be different from the company's value or environment, and you do not know until you join the team. That is very true. Well, most departments have their own mission and vision statements. Ask about that. What is their goals? What are their own KPIs? You then get a good impression. So I think for me, the easiest way to answer this is a previous company I've worked for. I worked for Philips for nearly 5 years. Obviously, we had as a global mission and vision to improve the lives of 3 billion people by the year 2030. Now, the recruitment organization doesn't create healthcare products or active products, but we bring in the best talent. And our KPIs were centered around candidate satisfaction, hiring manager satisfaction, and time to fill. So then you have a bit of an idea what environment you land in. And other than that, Ramesh, what you could do is see a little bit what kind of people are already in the team. You can always use LinkedIn, a little bit like a recruiter uses LinkedIn, to look up people, look up the manager, look up the person you're talking to, and see what they say on their own profile, and you'll get an idea of what matters to them. Hope that answered your question.
Thanks, Renee. Also, there's a question that actually came in from our YouTube live stream.
Okay.
So I'd love to bring that in as well. And thank you also for those of you watching through YouTube, of course. This question is about being fired or gaps perhaps on your resume. How do you as a recruiter look at that? And especially now with the pandemic, since a lot of people are losing their job, how do you think that affects their future recruitment process?
So I think it's very important. So thank you for asking this question, because it is a really important question, particularly with the pandemic. Now, the good news is that LinkedIn has brought in stay-at-home parent or any other gap that you can fill out on your resume. There's quite a lot of people who already fill out that they're using a sabbatical. Personally, as a recruiter, I don't necessarily look at it. I think then it is important to explain, A, what causes the gap on your resume, and be quite open and honest about it for as much as you can be, and B, to also keep learning throughout your unemployment history. So make it clear to the recruiter what steps you have taken to become employed again or stay relevant, particularly in the tech environment. Like I said, we went from data warehouses to data lakes to now potentially looking at data mesh. You have different technologies. It is important to stay up to date, and there, as a candidate, does come in your personal responsibility. So I think there it's important to keep learning. The previous speaker actually spoke about how important it is to keep learning, and one of the questions was if the company that you're working for has a responsibility to help you keep learning. I agree that it's in a company's responsibility to facilitate learning, but it is the employees or the candidates' responsibility to learn and to be eager and to stay on top of their industry knowledge.
Thanks, Renee. And also, we are coming towards the end of your time. So if you could
I'll
just
be
walk us
wrapping up.
through the rest and wrap up. Thank you so much.
I'll be wrapping up really soon. So another few best practices are if, and that you know it's a really good company and that you can ask for yourself. So I think it's always important that you are aware that you can ask for things such as a work sample or a test case. This can be a business case, this can be a coding, this can be co-coding. You can request an interview with a tech specialist, especially if you're only speaking to the department manager. Feel free to ask for that. Make sure that there's a clear timeline and request who does what for each interview step. This allows you to get a 360 view. So it's very important that you understand why certain people are in the interview process, what their contribution is, what their decision-making power is, and also know what their role is so that you can ask the right questions. So the result of a good process is that you know what the role really is, what is the preferred way of working, what are priorities for the department, what are goals, the contribution of the role in the company structure, and what the company expects. And on the other hand, the organization knows your strengths, your weaknesses, your values, your approach, your current skills and what level they are, your future potential, and your expectations. Now, this is not always nice to hear, but in the end, a lot of the times you're hired for what you are currently doing or what you currently bring to the table, not what you are going to do. So sometimes there is a little bit of a mismatch there because you want to move a step ahead or you want to change a little bit. It's always good to indicate what you want to learn and what you want to do next, but also be realistic that at first companies want to hire you for what they really need, what they urgently need. The impact of having a control and real insight in your own recruitment process is that you have a better understanding of why the initial offer is what it is, because you understand the team composition, you understand what they really need. So sometimes as if you bring more to the table than what is required, that can mean that the offer feels a little bit low, but it is in the end a fair offer. They're not trying to stick it to you. The offer is also less likely to be based on biased assumptions because both parties have very clearly articulated what they're expecting and the outcome is more realistic. Now I wanted to address for the last couple of minutes that I have a few general red flags. You can read them here. I think it is important to understand that work hard, play hard is great, except that it should never come to the expense of the work-life balance and that it doesn't glamorize overwork. Research has determined that overworking leads to burnout and not to more productivity. So work hard, play hard can mean that you need to reach end of month deadlines, and that's fine. But if it's structurally required, probably you should question it. That there's no structures and no processes, even if the word process can conjure up large bureaucracy, it is nice to have a framework because that will provide you with a bit of freedom. No defined KPIs or expectations. If there are really no KPIs, that's fine. If there are no KPIs, but also no expectations, that is a real big red flag. And because it should be clear what you contribute, what can be expected of you, because then only can you determine success and can you determine whether or not you fit. If a company hasn't figured that out, I would advise you to probe deeper. And if a company culture is summarized by a pool table or Friday afternoon drinks, I would also ask you to probe a bit deeper, particularly ask to talk to HR, because it is important to know that the basis of a good company culture is what is called psychological safety. Basically, it means that your values align with their values and that you feel enabled to speak up when you have new and novel ideas, or if you have a difference of opinion. And of course, having a pool table or having a foosball table and Friday afternoon drinks are a great bonus. especially if you feel comfortable enough to either participate or not. So these are just general red flags that I wanted to end it with, so that you can make good decisions on your next step. So thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Renee, for all your insights and walking us through the full process, and also really reminding us how important it is to think of our needs as well as we move into a job. Well, this brings us actually to the second half of our summit today, and I will be passing on my hosting role to my team member, Christella. Renee, feel free to stick around, of course.
Will do, thank you.
So Christella, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lara, and thank you, Renee. That was great. And hi, everyone. Thanks for being here for the second half of our Hack Your Tech Career Summit today. Really happy to have you here today when we're talking a lot about kickstarting your career, soft skills, recruitment, whereas tomorrow we'll dive deeper into the technical subjects, and I hope to see you again there as well. But for now, we'll continue on this road with our next speaker, William Groeneveld. Welcome, and great to have you here. Speaking of soft skills, I think that is something super important in tech as well. We've touched upon it a little bit already. I think you're going to dive deep into that as a data enhancer. And I'm sure we're curious to hear what that is as well. So floor is yours, and have fun, everyone.
All right, thank you, Christella. Can you hear me loud and clear?
Yes.
Great. I'm going to share my screen with you all. Can you please notify me if you can see it full screen mode?
Yes, we can.
Great, good stuff. All right. Well, thanks again for the introduction, and welcome everybody for being here. Yeah, looking forward for this presentation. And I'm going to tell you something about the soft side of tech. But first, a little introduction. So my name is William, and many years ago, I started in a technical university studying marine engineering. So I actually have not started with an artificial intelligence background or maybe a computer science background. Well, it is technical, but specifically for marine engineering. And during my studies, I found out that there is quite an interest in clearly explaining what you're doing, like the soft skills of data and explaining the data, the soft side of the work done is pretty important, and actually quite important. And I was getting better and better at it, and eventually working in projects in groups with other technical people, sometimes with at least computer scientists or other backgrounds of people in my studies. They actually put me forward to present my work or to actually do the project management work, or actually communicate with the professors. And from there on, after I graduated, I started at a big corporate and actually got to improve these skills more and more. And I found out that there's actually a really big part of the industry actually asking for more the soft side of tech, programming and the hardcore programming. And the algorithms is one part, but actually trying to understand the business is a whole different topic with, again, yeah, a whole different way of working. And this soft side of tech, I actually want to talk through it with a couple of competencies. And you may have seen them already earlier, or looking at what I can, for the soft side competencies. And what I think is very important, thinking about the work you're doing, is thinking about what is having empathy, curiosity, communication, accountability, management, teamwork engagement, confidence, perseverance, and patience, critical thinking, creativity, and problem solving. For now, this is quite a big list, but I'm going to talk you through it. And what I really found interesting, and what actually triggered me from the last presentation, Renee also said, like, think about the company, where you're going to work. What do you actually want to do? What do you think is important? Have questions ready for the company. Think about your working ethic. Well, with these competencies, or with these soft skills, as you can find them on the internet as well, these soft skills, if you answer them for yourself, you'll get a very more clear for yourself what is actually important for your work and how you want to work and how you want to communicate. And I'm going to go through them because, yeah, I have some I came across some problems, and I want to share yeah, I cannot find the word, to be honest, for this, but some experiences. And the soft side of tech, we have these competencies, we have these soft skills, but they are very different depending on the role you're actually doing. And what I do is I take these soft skills and I actually apply them in a very different way, depending on who I'm working with. Is it the end user, which I'm looking at? Is it a client, which I'm working at? Or in a team, or individually? And looking for a job, looking at what you want to do with data, think about it for yourself. What are these soft skills? How am I good in these soft skills? And how do my soft skills, in which part can I take the most advantage of them? Because, for example, talking to an end user, I think, in my opinion, you really must have a lot of empathy, curiosity, and be very clear in communication. Because it's very easy, if you're working with the end users, to make something what they actually do not want. And I was actually talking to a friend of mine earlier today, and she was talking about that she worked with software developers, and the software developer had just said, "Oh well, I'll program it this way because I think they'll know it." She actually asked him, "Are you sure they know it?" "Oh yeah, they do." And they had this dialogue because the developer had this big idea that the client would understand it, but he's the end user, he's the specialist. He was really think and be curious and try to catch the idea of this person who's eventually going to use it in the end. And that's where I think companies like Netflix and Facebook did a really, really good job, because they made it so easy for the end user to use. And they made these very smart things that for users, it makes it even much better to use it again. Like, for example, Netflix just showing or giving you some really good recommendations, or Facebook showing you the stuff which you actually find interesting. When working with a client, you have to communicate in a different way, and some more soft skills come to hand. You also need to be empathetic to the client itself. You also must be curious, like, why does he do it? Communicate, very effective, but also be very accountable. Promise, make promises, and actually do what you say, and manage the people and time and everybody involved, and be engaged in the team. Because I already heard, and I was very happy with this, a statement made earlier, there is so many different specialities involved in these projects that actually you really have to work together. And also another experience which I had lately was that I was talking with somebody who is in the logistics, and he has 10 big assets in which he transports cargo, large volumes of cargo. And he actually put sensors on everything. And me as a data analyst thinks this is amazing because I can do amazing analysis and I can do everything. I can calculate a lot of stuff. But I actually asked him, what are you doing? What are you going to do with it? And he did not know. So there's a big soft side to find out, to actually dive into this, communication, empathy, to really find out what kind of answers they want to have. Because I always say, give a data analyst or give somebody a piece of code, let them make a piece of code, give them money, and they'll be done for a year. They'll be happy for a year. But eventually it's also the end result which counts. So you really have to find out more on the soft side of what are we actually doing. Working in a team is, again, a different way of working. Also with these soft skills, be empathetic to your people you're cooperating with, be accountable, but maybe on a smaller level, not on big deliverables, but on small deliverables. But also on the small deliverables, because somebody else who is a software developer cannot work when the backend is not ready, and communicate very effectively on that. And also a big tip is something I learned is in communication, also say no. Don't be afraid to say no, because sometimes there are so many skills involved and they ask so much of you. And like was said in the last presentation, you can work for many hours on that. And overtime is really, really bad, because you cannot think creatively. You're not good in problem solving anymore. So also don't be afraid to say no on this part, and be really engaged with each other. You have to do it together because you're involved in so many skills, so many people, so many different parts of software, all have to come together. And then the last part, as an individual, it's very important to be curious. Find out, like, what is your neighbor or your neighbor colleague doing? What is he doing? What is she doing? Try to ask as many questions, be as curious as possible. But also, there's so much to learn. And I also heard some questions earlier, like, do I need to know Python or or more on the algorithm side, just do what you think is interesting and be confident, perseverance, and especially patience, that it will come to you as well. You need to work hard, but be patient that it comes to you as well. During your work, think critically about what you are doing, that your work is actually really good and that you're using the right tools. Be creative, think about innovative solutions, and especially use what you know in a good way in problem solving. And in the end, another experience for me for the soft side of tech, which I thought was really interesting. I did not know beforehand that this sector was so creative, that at least in my work, I had to be so creative, and I could let my creativity go. And people actually ask me, like, why are you becoming more into the data side? Why are you actually programming all day? Because you're just behind numbers. You're just crunching numbers. I said, no, I have to. My work is finding out what the client actually wants, translate that into code, and I have to be so creative with my tools. And I just have to, I really love doing the creative work. And during my studies, I found out that I wanted to do more with data and data science. I just asked more questions. I did all the work. I was curious. I had perseverance. I had persistence, and I had patience. And eventually, I let my curiosity lead me here to where I am now. And I always have one quote which I find which helps me out a lot. And this was from Steve Jobs, and he said this during a lecture at Stanford University. And I really love this. And I think it's really important for getting into software. And his quote was, "Stay hungry, stay foolish." Thank you all.
Great. Thank you so much, William. That's and I think that's a good quote for everyone to take away. Any questions from the audience? You can put them in the Q&A now, and I'm sure William will try and answer them soon. I have a question to start with, actually. So you're emphasizing how important soft skills are and what these soft skills are, but how do you develop these? How did you develop them?
I read a lot of books on them. Okay. I have some websites which I look on regularly, and also maybe this is on a broader level as well. If you want to get into into programming, there are so many websites which publish the most newest techniques, which talk about the soft side, the hard side, which show what's done, and you're really on the edge of what's new, and that's one part. And also doing. I found out that I was actually pushed in front of the group, and I actually started to develop my skills there. And eventually I got into this role with the consultant, which I mentioned earlier, and I actually had to develop the skills even further. And I didn't know that there was such an emphasis on actually reporting in a good way, like making good, nice and fancy graphs, telling a story which is clear and understandable. And also one more thing, which is also very important, working in a team or with a client, it's so easy on making this deep dive, diving into the details and getting stuck in there. It's really good to think about your soft skills. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? With who am I working together? Maybe ask for help. That's a whole part where people, which I also still sometimes have to think and recalculate and think about it, how to continue on this part.
So both self-study and ask a lot of questions in the company and to your colleagues. And do you have, maybe it's nice if you have specific websites or books that you'd recommend, maybe you can put them in the chat.
I have two. One that changed my life is a book that's called The Mom Test. And it's all about asking effective questions.
Okay, the mom, as in mother.
The mother, yeah. And the plot of the story is, don't ask your mom if it's a good idea, because she loves you and she'll always say yes.
Nice.
I really like that part. And another interesting website is, for example, Towards Data Science.
Okay. Oh, Juliana is saying, great book, by the way. You're not the only one who read it.
Good.
Towards Data Science, you were saying, the website?
Yeah. TowardsDataScience.com publishes very interesting articles. The newest data science, but also big data, soft skills, the whole spectrum.
Yeah, which is, I think, super important. Even if you don't move into a data science role, like in every tech role, you work with data or data scientists, right? So I think it's relevant for almost everyone working in tech nowadays.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, William. I think we will move on to the next presentation. Thank you for being here. If you want to stick around, send some more good advice in the chat. You're most welcome. And see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
And to everyone still here, thank you for being here. It's so strange that I cannot see you and that I cannot ask you how everyone's doing. I know that it's looking at a screen a lot these days. If you need a break and you need to go to the bathroom, you're free to go. We don't have any breaks because we have a full program with many speakers, but you can always come back to us, of course. And I'm really happy to move on to our next speaker, who's Georgia Panomitriou. Georgia, please join us on the floor. Hi.
Hello. Hi, Christella.
Hello. Nice to meet you. I'm good, and how are you?
I'm fine.
Yes.
Really? Yeah.
Really happy to have you here. You are a very experienced IT recruiter, and we've already had some talks about the recruitment earlier today with Renee, but you speak on another subject, which is remote working, which is, of course, has been relevant, has been a trend, but now has, I think, only become bigger. So I'm really excited to hear more about this. And my colleague will start sharing your presentation, and the floor is yours.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Christella. Thank you. So, hello to you all. I am Georgia, and I'm Talent Acquisition Partner at Beat. Thank you very much all for joining this webinar. Today, we're going to talk about remote working and how this has evolved over the last few years. First of all, before proceeding, if you would like Lara to go next into the next slide, thank you. First of all, actually, I would like to share with you my own experience when it comes to remote work. I have been working from home for 1 year and some months now because of the COVID-19 situation. Beat actually has been, if not the first one of the first companies in my country, in Greece, that decided to go remote when COVID hit. In the beginning, it was a bit weird and difficult because, you know, I love personal interaction. It's part of my job as well. But as the months, passed, I adapted to the situation, and I was trying to find ways to spend some constructive time in my home, like, cooking, exercising more, running outside in my neighborhood, or reading, some books. Of course, there are times that, I just can't, because we're still working from home. It's a bit weird, but I'm thinking, when losing my mom, that better days will come. I can hear my voice, so apologies for this. So Lara, could you please go next to the next slide? Amazing, thank you. So the shift to remote work represent perhaps the single greatest modern opportunity to improve our company's happiness, diversity, productivity, agility, talent pool, and environmental impact. So it's easier to do now than ever, and the world's most innovative companies are adapting to it. But while this may be an incredible opportunity for companies to embrace remote work, there are many challenges that we need to address as well. We need to think about the COVID-19 situation as well, and we need to think how the pandemic has normalized remote work and what that might mean. Will we go to the office again? And if so, how often? What impact will a hybrid way of working have on how we communicate, connect, and create? Will work from home be a great opportunity in terms of quality and diversity? And what will work mean in our offices, our virtual, and will those day-to-day, let's say, social interaction? So Lara, could you please go next? Thank you. So, of course, we need to think that this is not a trend, of course. It's a conscious shift. It's a fundamental shift in the way that humans work and live, and it's bigger than any single company or industry. We need to think about our happiness as well. A better work-life balance, more time with family, and no commute as major contributors to our happiness. Then remote work is inclusive. Modern companies strive to champion diversity and inclusion, but are severely limited by the office, which exclude actually entire population from the workforce by imposing geographic, economic, physical, and cultural restrictions, among others. So anybody can work here, including you, and you, as long as you live in this country, in this state, in this city. Remote work removes these restrictions and opens doors to all of us. Remote work improves as well productivity. One of the most productive aspects of office, of course, is our ability to facilitate collaboration and connection. But this can also hurt it. Employees may feel distracted at work, citing office noise, interruptions from coworkers, and so on. But remote work actually debiases and reduces bureaucracy by forcing companies to measure performance by results and output and nothing else. You're probably all too familiar with the fallacy that the people who spend the most time in the office are the most productive ones. But when companies go remote, the focus shifts from the office formalities to the work itself, because the work is what's most visible. Remote work as well attracts talent. We have seen this. I'm working, with many, candidates from all around the world. It's part of my job. So actually, remote attracts more talent because work flexibility is becoming the norm. It means that we can have a company with a wider talent pool of candidates from all around the world. We need to think about agility as well. As organizations scale needs, it becomes harder to adapt to change. But when companies introduce work flexibility, they themselves become more flexible in the process. Companies are forced to adapt more efficient tools and processes, communicate transparently, irritate rapidly and openly, and of course, include everyone in the process. Last but not least, this is my favorite one actually. Of course, we need to think about environment. Remote work is better for the planet. We can prevent 1 million tons of greenhouse gas emissions from entering the atmosphere by not commuting. Despite of all of these, nice points that I have mentioned, there are a number of challenges that arise from working outside of the office. So Lara, could you please go next? Thank you. Of course, we need to think about managing a project. So starting right at the top, the biggest challenge that I can consider with remote working is managing projects. So when your team is spread out across multiple locations. Thankfully, nowadays we have many tools for just about every challenge a remote team could experience. We need to think as well about remote collaboration. The most common challenge remote teams experiencing is collaborating from different locations. The first thing you need for remote collaboration is an effective communication channel, because we need something, instant, responsive, and quite flexible. Then we need to think about tracking tasks and productivity. Now we're getting into some of the more complex problems of managing remote teams, because to hit big targets, you need to make sure the tasks are getting completely in a timely manner. So for that case, be sure to have, let's say, to have regular one-on-one meetings with your managers, with your peers, serve feedback, and be ready actually to receive one. Then we need to think about, working from different time zones, locations, and so on. One of the greatest actually freedoms remote working gives businesses is the ability to hire talent from all around the world. The downside is much of this talent can be working in different time zones, which actually can put your team out of sync. So a way to solve this problem is to have a few guidelines in place for the team members, be consistent in the program, of course. Then we need to think about cultural differences. When you've got a remote team of peers from around the world, you're also likely going to have a rich mix of languages, cultural backgrounds coming together on projects. But, my advice here is be ready to embrace multiculturalism and anticipate it, of course. The best way to avoid any misunderstanding is an open and honest communication. Building trust can be difficult to achieve at times, especially on the remote teams, but get to know each other, be responsive and reliable, promote transparency, avoid any kind of micromanagement, and lead by example would be, some solutions on this. We need to think as well about legal aspects. This is a hot topic because companies need to take this into account as well. Employing a remote workforce can bring enormous benefits to an organization, but employing remote workers also comes with its own set of legal implications that companies need to consider as well. Each of these legal issues could be a potential liability for companies. So companies' legal departments need to take into account international employment laws, payroll, taxation, because could be proved like a tricky part. So creating and implementing a remote work policy that addresses legal issues can help prevent them from arising in the first place. So Lara, could you please go next? Thank you so much. So we need to think about COVID-19 as well and how its impact has brought up the hybrid model. So what is the hybrid working model in the first place? Actually, it's a location flexible arrangement allowing employees to combine on-site and off-site work. Following the lifting, of course, of COVID lockdowns worldwide, a wide range of hybrid arrangements have emerged, granting employees some flexibility. Hybrid work tends to include more freedom around when to work as well as where, and it generally grants more autonomy to employees. From the other side, the pandemic has drawn attention to some challenges among those allowed to work remotely, including maybe the spotty quality of internet access, the demands of parenting and caring, the luxury of rooming homes and outdoor space that make working from home comfortable. So here we can see both some challenges and some inequalities hidden in this way of working. There is also the question of personality. Some people need more time to adjust in this model, and this is totally fine. Last but not least, should we think of it as an inbuilt inclusion problem? I mean, this kind of structure would have neither the interaction of face-to-face work, neither the fairness that fully remote workforces can aspire to. So the challenge is to develop and maintain a hybrid compatible culture. So how to make a hybrid helpful, the hybrid model helpful, rather than difficult for the company? So first of all, clarity and consistency around procedures is important to avoid any kind of conflict. Transparent communication is also critical. Everyone should be seen and heard to prevent any misunderstanding, and having in place tasks that employees can complete independently and make decisions really quickly without requiring colleagues to be online at the same time. Because from my point of view, an efficient hybrid workplace actually shouldn't demand that everyone works at the same hour and at the same pace. So Lara, could you please go next? Question, of course. Before the questions, I would like actually to proceed with some conclusions here. As a company scale, remote work becomes less of a choice and more like a byproduct of growth. I believe that we all need to adapt in this situation because some great things could be achieved, like diversity and agility. On the other hand, we need, of course, to think of the challenges and adapt. But we as human beings, of course, we have a unique quality and flexibility in our lives, which helps us actually every day. This is called adaptability. It just takes a little creativity and comfort, getting used to a new way of doing things. So yes, I guess that's all from my end when it comes to remote work. Thank you all. Let's jump into your questions maybe. I don't know if there are any.
Thank you so much. I do have a follow-up question actually. So it's just to asking your personal experience. What has for you been the biggest challenge in remote working and the biggest gift, so to say?
Okay, so the biggest challenge for me personally is, of course, because I love the personal interaction. It's part of my job as well. I'm talking with candidates face to face in the office and so on. So this actually was the main problem for me. I love, talking, have, this kind of the interpersonal, getting in touch with people. It's very important for me. It was hard in the beginning, but because we are all very into the Zooms nowadays and everything, it was easy actually to keep up. The greatest thing for me is actually I'm enjoying some time alone. I spent some time making other things that I didn't really have the time, like cooking, exercising more. So it was
gave you some freedom as well.
Yeah.
Nice, great. I think that's like the two. A lot of people experience like the two sides. I think of.
Yeah, I feel the same.
Working. Thank you. We have some questions from the audience as well.
Okay,
Martina is asking. I heard that because of remote working, employers are sometimes a bit hesitant to hire juniors because it's harder to teach them. Is that something you think is true that you experience as well?
Mm-hmm. Okay, actually, this is not, let's say the thing for me personally. I love, get to know more people, juniors, seniors. So I'm very open to have people. It's not actually about seniority for me. It's like, keeping up with this new kind of remote working. So for me, it's not, like being more junior, being more senior.
No.
So I wouldn't think of it.
Yeah,
it's like more it's more like a personality thing. Like,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. And another question someone is asking that I think a lot of people feel like, how do you, when you start onboarding, how do you get to know an organization when you work remotely? Because normally, you're both at the coffee machine, you hear something in the hallway. How do you replace that?
Okay, I feel that we are doing a bit. It's the thing that we are following. We have, every process in place, every good presentation in place. The teams and the hiring managers, among the managers, when they onboard a new person, a new engineer, because I'm working mostly on the engineering side, they have actually reschedule all the meetings to ensure a smooth transition, a smooth onboarding period. So this is very important actually for the companies to have in place, I feel, to have in place, procedures, standard processes and rules to follow.
Right, so what normally happens more informally, you need to sort of formalize a bit more then in like planned meetings.
I feel that, yes, that you need to formalize it a bit. And of course, it's again, just, we're using Slack, for instance, here at VIT. So just, Slack your colleagues, have a coffee chat with them, get to know your team and your peers, your stakeholders. It's very important.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think Slack is replacing it more and more, but it's different than when you walk into a meeting and you walk out. I also hear that some people try to stay on the Zoom meeting a little after a meeting ends, or started a little bit earlier, for example, to replace this. I think it's true what you're saying, that it's still growing and we're growing into this more.
Yeah.
One more question I have, and that I also see Sabata referring to a little bit. How does it work with people working from their own country? Is it something that happens more now, that you hire more remotely as well, or that you're hiring from different countries? And how does that go?
Yeah, actually, at BEAT, of course, we have many people working remotely. We have already, started this like 2 years ago, so it's not a new thing for us. Okay, it's not the easiest thing, but it's not, of course, the hardest thing. The hard thing here is to really be aware of the legalities around, this. Be sure, have a very good legal team. Be aware of the regulations, so as to keep up with this kind of, people who want actually to work remote. But apart from this, actually, has been proved. A very good, let's say, thing for us and for our company. We have many people working remotely for BEAT. So yes, it was a successful story for BEAT.
Oh, good. Yeah, and it opens up a lot of opportunities for many people as well.
Yeah, this is true.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being with us and for answering our questions.
Thank you
I think it's really insightful, and I think we'll hear a lot more about remote working in the future. If you want, you can stick around a bit. Maybe people have some more questions in the chat.
Yeah, sure. Of course.
And yes, I see Maria coming in, our next speaker. Hi, how are you doing?
Hello. Hi, I'm good, thank you. I think you'll hear my dog here and there. If so, I'm sorry.
No worries.
She's a fan.
You have a microphone. It looks very professional. So.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me well.
Yes, I can. So thanks for being here. Maria works as a product owner, which is something that was that we touched upon earlier today. Product ownership, product management, a very important, maybe increasingly important role within the tech world as well. And something you can definitely move into as well when you start a tech career. Maria did so at booking.com and now works with Molly, but I'm sure she'll introduce herself a bit more. And she'll tell you a bit about what her life and what her days look like. So
yes,
first, Maria.
That's very true. Thank you so much. All right, let me try the sharing of the screen to see if you all can see what I see right now. Yes. Can you see my slides?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. So before I start, actually, I wanted to ask everybody who is online right now to leave where you're from in the chat. I'm very curious to see where everybody from, because we're remote right now. So I have no idea where you're all at. It'll be super nice to see actually on the side when I can see it. But anyway, hello, everybody. It's really nice to see you. I am Maria. I am a product manager. So today I'll be talking to you all about the product magic and what is it, the role, and where do product managers come from, and what is it that we do. I hope I will squeeze in enough to inspire you to consider this as your career, because it is very, very cool and it's really awesome. Because by the end of my day, I actually get to deliver really cool products to people like yourselves and your families and everybody around the world, which is one of the coolest things. So hopefully that will happen. In the meanwhile, let me tell you a little bit about me. So I'm a product manager of 10 plus years. I have worked in different areas of business, travel, fintech, education. And my flavor of product management, which, by the way, I'll touch upon a bit later, what that means. I don't actually have one. I just love working on whatever products, as long as I enjoy the team I work with. So I think it doesn't really matter to me. I'm quite flexible, but I have done work on data products, more commercial products, app products, all sorts. So, but I'll touch upon like the flavors in a bit so that you know what I mean. So firstly, yes, where do we come from? What's the history? So essentially, product managers are people behind all of these brands that you know and use, hopefully love, and some you probably don't. But we all come from very, very different backgrounds, and our stories are very different. And I think that is the one commonality we have. I've interviewed over hundreds and hundreds of product managers during my time at Booking.com, where I worked for 10 years. And one of the things that they all had in common is that we didn't have a common story. So, and I think this is probably going to resonate with all of you, where you are maybe reconsidering a career shift, or maybe you're at the beginning of stages of your career. This is a very common path for people to kind of go through different jobs in different countries before you find your dream destination. So the media and all of these fantastic job coaches like to tell us that it's a straight line. Well, it isn't. And it also wasn't for me. And I don't think it's for many people that I know. So over here, you can see that it took me a good 10 years before I finally arrived at a product management job, which is the number 8, by the way. And I got fired before I got there. And that wasn't fun. But I have learned so much through those 10 years, where I've learned what I don't want to do. And I've also learned a lot about how companies run. Because I worked in so many, in all different environments and sizes and departments, I have picked up so much knowledge, like kind of 360 knowledge about how businesses run. And once I got into product management at the 8th point, I've really just kind of thrived, and it's more or less on the way up there. I'm now on my 10th job, so let's see how many more I'll get. But I think the main story to take away here is that between 20s and 30s, it is the time of the changes and sampling of jobs. And if you're there right now, it's normal. We all have this. So don't feel weird, and kind of embrace that fact that it is part of it. But product managers have also quite interesting history in terms of the role and where it comes from. Funnily enough, although right now we talk about product management in software development perspective, it doesn't come from software. So it actually started all the way back in 1931, where the company called Procter & Gamble, I don't know if you know them, they try to find out whether they can find a better match between the products they're selling to their customers and the price, and also kind of figure out why they're not selling some of the products as well as they could. And when they tried to do it through sales, that didn't work. When they tried to do it through marketing, that didn't work. So what they did, they created a role that was a mix of all and sent those people over to talk to customers. And that was success. So this is the first time where we see a kind of a fusion of different departments in one role and specifically focusing on customer. And this is very much still the case today. Maybe it is not as much about marketing and sales, but it is very much still a fusion of different skills and things with the focus on customer. Nowadays, more like 2001 and 2010 is where we are starting to touch more the definition of what product management is today. That started with the Agile Manifesto, where I don't know if you know about this. If you don't, Google it. It's actually where Agile comes from. And in this manifesto was basically defined also a need for being more centered on customer and less on the processes of the business. And this is also where the need for the role of product owner within an Agile development team was created and was born. So this is where we go, and this is kind of where you can start the history, the more modern history of product management. So as I mentioned, we are representative of the customer voice, but so that is the ultimate responsibility that I carry in my team and in my company. However, it's not as simple as that. I also have to balance the need of the business or the company and what is feasible technically. So many of you are developers. So this is very much part of the equation of what I have to consider. Your voice and what you think is possible, together what my customer wants, together what the business wants. So as you can imagine, that's quite a lot of tension, and trying to find the compromise between the three sides is not always easy. So for me to be able to do that, I need to have a set of commercial skills to understand my market and my customer, but I also have to be fluent with data to be able to say whether a certain direction makes sense, KPIs, SLIs, SLOs. I need to have an affiliation with design and tech so that I can speak to both of these roles, so that I have a conversation with you and we actually talk the same language. But all of this can differ from company to company and from product to product. So in some cases, all three are needed and more. In some cases, only all three are needed. So it really depends. Again, that kind of a little, I would say, complexity to the role comes back again. But one thing that is true, there is no university degree for this job. Not yet. I'm curious if it will happen, but not yet. So you can't really study to become a product manager. There are certain courses and certain qualifications that will help you. I would say background in economics, but also background in tech is very, very useful. But as you heard, it is very much a collection of experiences and skills and companies that you kind of collect along the way. These days, what is also important to say, as I mentioned, the role sits within the software development team. So if you think about the company structure, there is different departments. Product management sits within the tech department or the software development team department. Now, we've been talking a lot about product management, but we haven't really touched upon what a product is. So what do I mean when I talk about product? So there are many, many definitions that you may find, but here's my personal one. So products in software development is something that either customer can interact with, business can interact with, or machine or code can interact with. And this really includes quite a lot of things if you think about it. So from customer perspective, customer is somebody who pays for products in exchange for service, right? So these are things like maybe an app that you use, Spotify, Uber, whatever have you. Businesses are, products for businesses are things that you may not see as a customer, but businesses need in order to run what they do. These could be HR services, or these could be financial reconciliation services, more or less for the back end of the business. And finally, machine and code. This is something that a lot of people forget, but it's very much part of the day-to-day life nowadays. So these are products or features that are required to run something. For example, an API or service-to-service framework, a cloud framework. These are all things that you can purchase these days. It could also be a machine learning algorithm or a security code that protects you when you're going through the payment process. These are all pieces of products that companies these days can actually outsource purchase and buy. So as such, they also have product managers. Interactions on all of these products can be for any and all purpose. Just because they're free doesn't really mean that they don't belong here. Nothing is really for free too. Not many things are for free. A lot of things are for price or for data, for exchange of your data. Yeah, I was wondering if you can actually think of some products yourselves, some things that you have on your laptop or maybe on your mobile phone. I bet you can. Zoom is one. We're on one product right now. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the kind of flavors of products that we have in the world. And also with that comes a product management flavor. And why I want to talk about it is because this is where I think it gets interesting for different people. Because if you think of a product management as this one generic unknown thing, it may not be so exciting to get into. But if you start looking at it from different expertise point of view, it may be something that you may consider. For example, data science area. So there are many products on the market today that consider data science within its portfolio. For example, TikTok has a For You page that's fully run by machine learning. YouTube, recommenders, of course, they're famous for recommendations. You have Spotify, their whole dashboard where you land is all recommendations, basically in different shape and form. So it's all machine learning, all data science. And all of these products have product managers behind them who have data science backgrounds and affiliation and skill sets, and they deliver these products together with data scientists and developers. So if you've ever had that kind of affiliation, this could be an area for you. There are also other ones, for example, in security and technical products, but also like the more sexy or like known are the commercial products. So your Instagrams and YouTubes of the world and Airbnbs. So all of these companies have sometimes actually hundreds of product teams behind them with product managers behind with each team. So there's plenty to pick from. One thing that I like to also mention is, for example, within the commercial area, if you're looking at development for app or website, there is a different skill set that's required from the product manager. It's not that you can't have all of these. You can actually work on all of these if you wish. It's just that as more and more products enter the world, there is more and more need for refinement expertise from everyone within the team. So rather than being a generalist, you tend to become more specified and focused on one area within the product management these days. And I think that's kind of cool. You can still choose to be generalist, but I think it's quite cool to be able to kind of go into flavor. So what do we do? Whatever flavor we have, right? Doesn't really matter. We still need to deliver products. And how do we do that? So deliver a product is not just simple as kind of coding and then testing and pushing it out. There is a lot of steps before, during, and after for product managers. So we are actually, as a role within the company, we are held responsible to come up, deliver, and improve products for our customers. So that can be as simple as there is no idea yet, and I need to come up with an idea and deliver it all the way, or there is a product and I just need to improve it continuously. So let's actually take a real example of a product that I delivered last year, and we can go through the 5 main stages of product management through that example, which I hope will be better than just talking some fluffy theory. But you can tell me later if it was better. So here is a good example of a product which I worked on. It was basically building out an app for a company, a student platform, which is aimed at students. So these students, millions of customers of this company, started basically sharing with the company through customer service whether we already have an app. So I, as a product manager, I had a big like ping. Okay, interesting. People are asking for a feature or product. Should we explore? So what we did at this stage is we've actually started a discovery phase. So this is a discovery. So the moment where you're starting to know, is this worth doing? This discovery phase was actually quite long. It took almost 2 months. And we basically spent time looking at markets, and we did research with the users, the actual customers. We looked at competitors and the landscape of competitors, and also asked people more bigger topics. For example, how do they study? What kind of products they use when they study? What kind of apps? Just to see what's already on the market. Based on all of that information and data collected in this discovery phase, I was able to come back with a recommendation for the company to say whether we should or shouldn't build the app. In this case, it was a yes. So based on this recommendation, they've asked me to also come back to them with a roadmap and a plan of, okay, what are we going to do? What are the features? How many people we need to build it? By when can we do it? And how much will it cost? So all of that came out of the discovery phase, and I created this plan. So once we had that plan, we basically started. We have, at this point, involved a designer and a user researcher. The designer has created a lighter design. So that's wireframe through Figma in this case. And through this design, we were able to come back to some of our customers and say, hey, would you mind testing this new product for us and let us know what you think? This was a blind test, so we didn't really tell them how to use it. We just showed them the design and we observed them. And based on these observations, we were able to make some changes to the product and see whether what we're doing actually makes sense. And then after the blind test, we did another session where we asked them, okay, so now that you know it's an app, what would you like? What are the kind of features you're looking for? Just to make sure that we're still hitting the discovery phase state. So like knowing what came out of the discovery, are we still on the right track here? So after this phase was done, we went into the actual development stage. So this is where the actual work gets done. So you as developers begin to code. We have split the work into 3 sprints. Each sprint is basically a time of 2 weeks where we prioritize and break up this big piece of work into sections. For example, in sprint 1, a good example is a registration or login page. So in order for our users to be able to use the app, they have to be able to log in. So within sprint 1, we have prioritized all the work required for us to build a login page with all the functionality, design, everything required had to be done within the sprint 1. So this continues throughout the 3 sprints. And then at the end of sprint 3, we actually had the full app. And then comes the stage of a release. So in this case, I wasn't fully comfortable releasing it right away to all of the users globally. We went with a beta release where we chose 1,000 users first. And through the interaction where they download the app, used it and gave us feedback, I became confident and comfortable with releasing to everyone globally. And this is what happened through 52 countries. Now the app is live in both App Store and Play Store. And we are not finished because now the next job begins, actually collecting feedback and trying to understand whether the app is still fixing the problem we were trying to solve in the first place, understanding if everything is working as intended, are there any bugs or things that people are complaining about. So this is what we did in this stage. We basically looked at all the feedback continuously as was coming in, making sure that everything is as it should be. And through the stage, also what I was able to do is actually start thinking about the next cycle. So just because we have delivered the app doesn't mean we're finished. Now there are new features, new pages, new things that people are asking for. So that has to be now prioritized again. And you kind of begin the whole cycle again. So you go all the way to the start and you start over. So these are the basic stages of product management. And maybe I was going very fast, but maybe you're already thinking like, that's a lot of work. How do we do it, right? And there are 2 answers to that question. On one hand, it's very much a collaboration sport. So we have to work together with everybody in the team. So we are very much part of the team. As a product manager, I would actually argue that collaboration is at the top of the skills that you have to have. So you have to be able to communicate, connect with others, be able to actually smooth out maybe some arguments and things that can go wrong. Particularly as we work remotely, a lot of things can go wrong because we may have different way of expressing ourselves. We come from different countries, different cultures. And if people don't get along, products don't get shipped. So as a product manager, I have to kind of be on top of that too. So influencing people and being a good collaborator is one of the top skills for product management. But also a second skill that's very, very important is actually organization and being able to organize yourself. Here is a screenshot of my calendar. As you can see, it's very, very busy because it's filled with things that I need to do in order to stay on top of what we're working on, meeting with the team, meeting with my stakeholders, making sure the roadmap is updated, reviewing what we've done, making more user research, making more discoveries. So it's a continuous cycle of work. And it's very easy to get lost in the noise. So it's very important that you're also able to kind of see the bigger picture and stay on top of this day-to-day work. So for me, I've used a lot of tools that help me stay on top of my schedule and my agenda. And I think that's also part of the success. And I think like a good TLDR takeaway slide for what a product management is, when I was thinking of how to explain it to my mom, and maybe if you need to ever explain it to your mom, this is a fantastic way to represent that. So basically, I feel that product management is kind of like being a conductor of an orchestra, where you have so many wonderful experts that play their instruments so wonderfully. They have studied for years, they're really good at it. And now we need to come together. It's not about the solo performance anymore. It's about us playing together. And I think that's the magic of product management, that we all come together to play that song, right? And where the magic comes through is through the user, through the customer who comes to the concert, pays that money, knows where to go, knows the venue, and there goes an orchestra just like kind of effortlessly playing the song, right? And just you are in awe, and the experience is wonderful. And you go home and you talk about it with other people, and you love to go back. And that is the magic of product management. If you do it well, this is what you get, and this is why I love it. So, yeah, I hope that this gave you a good feeling, a good understanding what the job entails. Are there any questions for me?
Thank you, Maria. That was super insightful and a lot of information in a short time. Thank you.
Yes.
I really loved how you took it from like a career where, how did your career go more into the details of product ownership? I think the first line is something a lot of people recognize. I recognize, and a lot of people are also at the beginning of that line, and it can feel very overwhelming. So that's nice to see. And we do have a couple of questions from the audience and more coming in. First one was from Judith, and she asked if you could give a specific example of the commercial skills you needed.
Yes, there are so many. So a good commercial skill would be a prioritization. So being able to determine the value of work that you're trying to create versus the cost. So kind of a business mindset around, I need to invest X amount of hours with these developers. What is the value I get out of it? And is that value matching what my customer wants? Mm-hmm. So that's a very good aspect of commercial mindsets. And maybe another, maybe more typical one could be that you have an awareness and understanding of the trends that are in the business, in your market, your customers, what's going on, technical innovation and trends like that. So having that bigger picture all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. And which I think is also a very good question. I think she asked it as well. What's the difference exactly between a product manager and a product owner?
Yes, and project manager and program manager, there are four. So I think, number one, I have to say, some companies call it different, but it's the same to them. But officially, there is a difference. So product owner, I would say, has more of a narrow scope. So when you think about, let's say, a feature you want to ship on a website, so there could be a product owner just looks after that one feature, let's say search or ranking or hotel page. Product management, on the other hand, considers the full end journey of the customer from the beginning till the end. So you kind of look after a larger part of the product, the full product, right. End to end. Yeah. So that would be maybe the bigger difference.
Yeah. So it has a lot to do with scope.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, great. You were also mentioning some tools that made your life a lot easier, and multiple people were asking about it. For example, the ones for planning and time management. Do you have certain tools that you can recommend?
So I love Clockwise. I don't know if you guys know it, but it's an amazing tool, particularly for people who have a lot of meetings. It's an add-on on the calendar And what it does, it takes over scheduling for like recurring meetings, and it respects when you say, hey, I want to have a focus time from 10 till 12, it will respect that time and not allow anybody to book any meetings. So for me, that's super important. And besides this, I use a lot of Google products to kind of make sure that I'm on top of things like Calendar. I do a lot of add-ons between Calendar and my email. And then for roadmaps, for example, I really don't like to use too many fancy tools or anything like that. I actually like to use Miro. Miro is a wonderful tool for visualization of roadmaps and all sorts of workflows. So I like to keep it simple in one place as much as I can. So I know there are like hundreds and hundreds of tools, but I think it's more about like what works best for you. Yeah, I think these are good. Yeah.
Great. Maybe if other people have other recommendations that they're used to using, put them in the chat and share them with all of us.
Yes, I'll check them out too.
Yeah, we got a lot of answers as well on your question where everyone was based from. I'm not sure if you saw.
Yes, I saw it. It's amazing. All around the world, man.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Colombia, Dubai, Netherlands, Utrecht. Oh man, India. Yeah, it's crazy.
So last question before we continue to the last meeting of today. We're running a little bit late, but I think this is an important one for many people here. How do you transition from more of a tech role, such as a developer or an automation engineer, towards product manager?
Yes, that's a wonderful one. So I think one way to do it is to pick a product management flavor that's close to your craft. So as I said, maybe for those people, a technical product could be a wonderful one. And I have to say, particularly technical product managers are scarce. So I would recommend that path. But I also do know that a lot of people are trying to get into product management from non-technical, like maybe non-technical roles, not sure. But a lot of the times what works a lot is if you get as close as you can to the product team. So maybe you will not take on the product manager job right away. Maybe it's something like technical coordinator or marketing coordinator or something related to the team. But the sooner you get close to the team and work with them, the sooner you get an opportunity, because almost every product team will hire eventually, and they tend to look inwards first. So if you're close to the team and you already know them, it's very likely you'll get that opportunity. So that would be my best tip.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Maria.
No worries. That was lovely. Thank you.
And answering everyone's questions. And thanks everyone for putting your questions in the Q&A. I saw you asked Maria as well to put the tools in the chat. So I'm forwarding that question right now. And then, yeah, stick with us for the last presentation of today. It went by very fast, but we'll have another day tomorrow where we will have more tech talks. And I think our presentation now is a good kickoff of that. Sander, please join us. Yes, there you are. Hi.
Hi.
Good to see you. Sander has a really interesting career in analytics, data engineering, and now works as a big data architect with Nike. He's a freelancer, and he will share some of his experiences as a big data architect with you guys today. So last presentation. So any more questions that you have, this is your chance, and I'm gonna give the floor to you really quickly, Sander. Enjoy.
Thanks, Marcel, for the intro, and everyone for joining. I know I'm the last talk of the day, so I just keep it short and light. But I hope that you get some takeaways from my talk. I'll talk about what it's like to be working in data, specifically in tech, but in data specifically, depending on the organization you're in. But maybe first a bit about my background. I actually studied aerospace engineering at Delft University of Technology and worked for a while in aviation consulting, and that's how I got into data. Company I worked with, we worked with lots of sensor data for aircraft, and that's how it got me sparked into data science and what you could do with data within the professional world. So went on working into business consulting, worked at EY, doing data analysis for large financial institutions, which was really interesting, but ultimately becoming freelance, working in data science and data engineering, and generally just helping organizations grow through data as a freelancer, which is cool because I get to see lots of organizations from large to small ones, And so some of the organizations I've been with for the past years were Coolblue, which is the e-commerce company, LeasePlan, and now been with Nike for over a year, leading the data science team. So I'll explain what a data scientist does or what data engineer does in an organization. And I'll do that just by narrating on how most of the organizations I've seen grow in terms of their data capabilities. And that will show a bit at what the role of a data scientist is as well. So I'll tell the story of a e-commerce company. It's a generic company, and it could be true for any e-commerce or non-e-commerce business. And often it starts with just people within the business asking questions. So for example, we have this guy working at an e-commerce company and needs to buy stock for the company, but needs to know how much of which product does he need to buy. So how does he go about this? Well, first thing is pulls up a dashboard tool like Tableau or Power BI or even Excel and start looking at historic sales data. How much did you buy last year? How much sales did you get? So buy enough stock. But you want to be a bit more careful in doing so and doing a bit of forecasting. So opens Excel, creates huge Excel sheets to see if he can extrapolate some of the data that he had to figure out how much stock to buy. But soon you discover you're hitting the limits of what a tool like Excel can do for you, or basically extrapolation. And you want to know a bit more. For example, what will happen on days like Black Friday, or what if you throw in some discounts on the website? What will happen with sales, and how much stock do you need to buy for that? So these kind of quite complex data questions pop up. So that's often how data science gets introduced into these organizations. And this is the example of a guy needing to buy stock, but this could be true for any department, really. So data scientist joins the department to help answer these kind of questions using no longer only Tableau or Power BI, but Python and R to do forecasting with regression models, Facebook profit, or any of these kind of models to see if you can forecast the sales or time series forecasting, which is cool because you're as one data scientist in the department working really close to the business. And so you'll get a good understanding of what the business needs and doing so. But you'll have quite a limited option because you're not working in IT department, development department, really close to the business. So you'll be limited in terms of what you can do, data access that you get. But you have room for innovation in there. Now, what happens in the organization? Not only one person needs to know a bit more than he can handle with Excel, but as it gets true for all of the departments, they need to do so. So what you'll see is there's many data scientists or small teams of data scientists popping up across the organization, all helping individual business stakeholders, essentially. And so what you'll see is that these data scientists, they will get to know each other, but since they're working in different departments, they'll stay quite working on different tools, different ways of working, and collaboration will be ad hoc. But they see that there's desire to work more efficiently, more coherent in terms of way of working. So then what happens? They form a team. So this is where you'll see data science teams popping up inside the organization, still answering the same questions, the same tool sets, but as a team where you can work more coherently in the same way. And also and I think this is a nice bridge to the previous talk on product, where you'll see the need for a product owner popping up. So because you're helping multiple stakeholders, it's not only you and your one stakeholder you're trying to help, but you have multiple of them. So you need to prioritize, okay, so how are we going to work? Which other products are we going to pick up? And how can we productize the work we're doing? And so that's what product owner would be doing in this case. And because you're now a team and no longer a single person, it means you'll have a bigger say in the organization as well. So you can get better tools, can get better access to data, but still the questions you're answering are pretty much the same output in dashboarding tools. But you might get things like R Shiny, so adaptable dashboards or Streamlit apps, etc. And still working for internal audience. Then new question pops in. Can we increase sales through personalized recommendations? So as the initial stages of data science inside of organizations will mostly answer internal questions, internal stakeholders outputting in dashboards. until you reach a certain maturity and you start answering questions that go beyond that. So for example, recommendation engines. And so we've seen examples in the previous talk on how Spotify, Netflix, etc. are doing these. And these are data science questions which are answered towards the audience directly or the customers directly. So it's no longer internal, but need to integrate with all sorts of systems. And therefore, as a team, you need new skills, because initially the data science team was just a bunch of data scientists grouped together. But the skills needed to answer these kinds of questions go beyond that. You need software engineering skills, testing, automation, API development, front end, back end, cloud deployment, etc. So a whole range of skills is suddenly needed to answer these questions. So what happens is you're no longer as a data scientist working in a group of data scientists, but you're working as a data scientist in a development team. Multiple skill sets, multiple profiles fit into one team to actually make the product. The distance to the business stakeholders is often a bit larger as well, because now you're no longer within the business department, but working within an IT department. And you need to bridge that gap, but you get more advanced technology, access to technology, better access to data, and scope is a bit more narrow, but you'll be, because you're working on a single product, no longer multiple of them, focusing on single feature, for example, single feature or the product, single domain. But the use case is a bit more advanced of that. And then finally, as the organization even scales out, no longer doing this for a single product, but for multiple of them or multiple parts of the product where data science comes into place, you'll see in more development teams, data scientists popping up and ultimately forming this organization to do so. So what's my takeaway for this and for everyone in the call as you go about your career in tech is that if you're applying for a job or internship in this area, be aware of the organization that you're applying to. So the same role in any of the three cases, the organization will be asking for data scientists. You'll see job ads for data scientists, but it's the content of the job and the place where you'll be working on is very different. So be aware of this, be conscious of this as you go about applying to these positions. What is it that sparks your interest? Any of the places that are shown could have been interesting. For example, if you're just one person working with this one stakeholder, getting early on in the organization for data science, it means you'll have a great place to learn about the business, to learn about the domain that you're working in, a great room for innovation. So that's interesting. But if you're in the organization, the last one I showed, which is very much advanced, it will mean that you get more advanced technology access, for example, and working on more technology advanced project, innovation, etc., which could be interesting. So it really is depending on what do you look for in your job, what motivates you, what do you want to learn, and be aware of that as you go about, because they'll all be asking for a data scientist, basically. That's it for my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Sander. And I think it's very a relevant insight for people who are indeed applying for jobs, because from the outside, it's sometimes very hard to establish that. We did get a question from the audience, but it's about a different part of a career a little bit, because it's about the freelancing that
Sure.
I shortly mentioned that you did. Hope you don't mind.
No, of course not. Yep.
Okay, because Sabatte is thinking about moving into freelancing. And the question is, do you have any advice of what kind of preparation you need when you want to go into freelancing, and things that you need to consider?
Well, first, I think it's good to get some experience in the area you want to freelance in. So for a company to hire, they tend to hire, I think, a bit more senior people as a freelancer opposed to on the job, because they'll expect you to perform just as you start, basically. Whereas if you hire someone for a longer term on a payroll, they'll invest in you a bit more. So that's something to consider. And then as you're freelancing, be aware that you'll need to be responsible for your own learning and take initiative to do so. So just be prepared for doing that, taking these initiatives. And before you go into freelancing, just specialize yourself in an area so that as you start out freelancing, that you're quite sure that you'll be hired in this area as well.
And what do you yourself think is the biggest plus and the biggest downfall of freelancing in the tech field?
The biggest plus definitely is for me to be able to see different organizations, different domains. It's really easy to switch these and to do multiple at the same time. For example, now I'm mainly working with Nike, but I have several side projects where I'm helping smaller organizations, which is really cool to be able to do it simultaneously, so you can learn about this. So that's what I like a lot. Biggest downside is I think the colleagues that you have. I think because of course everywhere I go to, you make friends and you meet colleagues, but you're never in part of a close group working together. So that's definitely the biggest minus for me.
Yeah, you're always a bit of the outsider who's going to
exactly
again. But all in all, you would recommend it in this.
Yeah, for me it's been a great experience working as a freelancer.
Great. A last question, I think, from Peter is can you tell a little bit about what your current job entails? I'm not sure how much you can share of that.
Sure. Yeah. So I currently work as engineering manager within Nike, responsible for machine learning engineers. Department that I work in is called Enterprise Data and Analytics. It's a big department. It's 250, 300 people doing all sorts of things from reporting onto data science use cases, recommendation engines, etc. And so within the department, there's 25 data scientists, and basically they report to me. So I help them with all sorts of stuff from architecture, and there's architects as well, but also setting up the teams, making sure they can work together, helping them figure out which algorithms to use where, etc. So really day-to-day operational management for the data scientists.
Great job, I think.
I like it.
Lots to do with the Nike as well. So
I think, yeah.
That's good to know for everyone here. We are short. Oh, Peter saying thanks. So thanks, and thank you for this presentation and for your time to answer some of the questions. I think we're going to wrap up day one of the Hack Your Tech career with these last beautiful insights. Thank you, Sander. Also thanks to all of you for being here from all over the world, and I hope that you will be here again tomorrow. We already put it in the chat that we'll have a program that dives a bit deeper into different technical fields such as artificial intelligence, software engineering, full stack development tomorrow. So feel free to join. I would like to give a big thanks to all of our speakers who were here today and shared all of their wisdom. I hope it helps you in kickstarting your tech career. I'd also like to thank my amazing team, my co-host Lara, tech support and marketing Balsina, our moderator, and AIgents founder Robert, and ELU's founder Alper. We'll have an interview tomorrow with the two founders of the organizations that are organizing this summit. So if you want to know more about that, either follow the links in the chat or join us tomorrow at 4 p.m. Central European Time. I'll be here again to see you then, and have a good night or a good day, everyone, wherever you are. And thank you for being here.